everyone. Welcome to today's program on justice, a lawyer's hangout where lawyers dissect legal issues with intent to create awareness, educate, and enlighten the public. My name is Cecilia Meme, and joining me on today's program are lawyers in the legal profession in the person of Mr. Charles Ali, Mr. Ebenezer Amadi, and Ms. Munirat Adama. Welcome to today's program.
Thank you for having me.
Today, we'll be discussing violence against persons. Let's get right into the conversation. Mr. Ali, I'll be beginning with you.
Thank you.
When we say violence against persons, what do we generally refer to? And what offenses can we categorize as violence against persons?
All right, thank you. When we refer to violence against persons, we are looking at actions and attitudes from a certain person or from people or from a certain corner or whatever organization that affects an individual's interests negatively, that puts in fear or intimidation into anyone, that affects the person physically, psychologically, or mentally, as the case may be, and certain actions or acts that may transcend into violence against person may include rape, could include physical assault, could include verbal assault and abuse, and could also include even forcefully isolating a person from their loved ones, amongst many others. Maybe when we get deep into the conversation, we'll touch more on that.
Okay, when you've mentioned some offenses. Can we also say issues of domestic violence, spousal battery, and all of that? We can classify them as violence against persons.
Yes, it can be classified as violence against persons.
Okay, Mr. Amadi, are there laws that generally provide for violence against persons within the Nigerian landscape?
Yes, there are laws that guides the violence against persons. The principal law is the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, which was enacted in 2015.
Okay.
So this law is very comprehensive when it has to do with protecting persons in Nigeria against violence. It is very comprehensive, and it made a lot of provisions against any violence against persons. You know, previously, we didn't have a law that criminalized for some of these violence, like domestic violence from a spouse.
Okay.
It was not criminalized. So when the VAP Act was enacted, it now criminalized some of these offenses, some of these actions, like my colleague rightly mentioned, like intimidation, like domestic violence, battery, sexual assault, and there are lots of them, isolation. They were now criminalized. But some of these issues were already existing, but they were not criminalized by that time.
Okay.
So because of the activism from both international organizations and civic society in Nigeria, it led to the enactment of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act in 2015, which is actually is a national law.
Okay.
It was enacted by the National Assembly, but now some states have also domesticated it
Okay.
as a law in their states. So apart from that, the VAP Act, we also have other laws too that also touch on the violence against persons. For instance, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It protects persons from violence. If you look at Chapter 4 of the Constitution, which has to do with the fundamental human rights, it made elaborate provision protecting people's lives, protecting people's freedom. For instance, Section 33 makes provision for the right to life. Section 34 makes provision for right to dignity of human persons. Section 35 of the Constitution makes provision for the right to personal liberty. So these rights are all existing in the Constitution, and they are protected. So you can even enforce your rights against violence as a fundamental human right. But what the VAP Act does is that it criminalizes it. It makes it a crime rather than just a right you can enforce. The person that infringes on your rights can actually be punished We also have the Child Rights Act, which is also in existence. It's also talked about like child marriage and intimidation of children and harassment, torture. So the Child Rights Act is also another law that also regulates.
Provides for violence against persons.
Lastly, we have the African Charter on Women and People's Rights.
Wow.
So these are some of the laws.
Ms. Munirat, what does the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act and other laws aim to achieve?
Thank you very much. Like Barrister Madi rightly said, first of all is to criminalize all those offenses that Barrister Charles mentioned. Is to achieve one of the achievements for VAP Act is to make every individual as a Nigerian be aware that someone else cannot just come and trample on your rights as a person, on your dignity as a person. It's for you to realize that one of the achievements or the aim of VAP is to make sure that the individuals are safe and they can get remedy from the government or organization that have been put in place in the country.
Okay, so we can rightly say that one of the major aims of that act is to eliminate violence in both private and public life and to ensure that there's maximum protection.
And let me add, also to eradicate some of the barbaric cultures we have in Nigeria. For example, the mutilation of children genital parts. Yes, even we have this widowhood practices where they force a woman to marry someone else and all that. And then also, I love the VAPA so much because it included men in the rape. You know, when you hear the word rape, they'll be like, oh, a woman. Even a man, yes. No, it's not genderalized to be only women. It's also included men. So it's for general awareness, for you to know that this is as far as this, like Barrister Charles said, this is as far as this person, this organization, these people can go in deciding the way something negative can go on in my life or not. Simply putting it plain.
Okay, back to Mr. Charles. Are there institutions in charge of handling reports of such offenses? So if I have an offense, if I'm a victim of any of all of this violence, where should I go to?
Yes. All right. Thank you. There are institutions in place for the enforcement of these laws. And principally, we have the NAPTIP, which is the National Agency and the Trafficking in
For the
Persons.
prohibition of trafficking in persons.
And all right, with its headquarters within the FCT here in Wuse Zone 5, your complaint can be channeled there directly. Also, if you look at even the Acts, thing section 32 downwards, you would see that even the Nigerian police is saddled with the responsibility of making application to the appropriate court to seek for protection of victims of this violence and offenses against them. And under the Nigerian police, you know, the Nigerian police has a specialized way of dividing their squads, let me say so. From the intelligence response team, you have those who are the state CIDs, criminal investigation department. For cases like this, there's a special directorate, let me put it in that way, at the federal criminal intelligence department called the gender unit. Okay, exactly. So when you get to the gender unit, it's you meet professionals who have been trained by international organizations, by the Nigerian police itself, to handle matters of this nature. You should know that by the provisions of the VAP Act, if you look at the species and of a violence against persons there, you discover that it is sui generis, it is in a class of its own. They are unique in its nature. So these people are specially trained to handle these matters because they are very delicate.
Okay.
And these institutions are bound, and they have been working, and we are seeing the results.
Okay.
Those are the principal institutions.
Okay, for the sake of emphasis now,
Yes.
NAPTIP is one of them.
Yes.
Then the police,
Nigerian police gender unit, right of petition to the gender unit. Okay, that is for law enforcement agencies. Then even for the other CSOs, all right, civil society organizations.
Civil societies, yeah.
You have professional bodies like the FIDA, that also takes responsibility. It takes this responsibility on themselves to ensure that they push forward some of these complaints. But on the long run, at the peak of it, it goes to these law enforcement agencies to enforce it.
Okay, and
summary,
from your experience in practice, these institutions, they are very effective in handling all of these things, because you just mentioned NAPTIP, and I don't know, not everyone out there
Yes.
are even aware that there's an organization called NAPTIP.
Exactly.
The first point of call a lot of people will always want to utilize is the police force. But we also need to let them know that aside the police force, NAPTIP, there are civil societies, there are NGOs, registered service providers for this purpose that they can actually utilize to register such complaints to.
Let me take a swipe on that before you go further. Like you rightly said, there's the police, there's NAPTIV, and you asked the question if NAPTIV was active. Personally, NAPTIV is very fast because I've gone there before for a petition against domestic violence, and they called her. They try to settle the matter amicably, and they say if the husband does not budge to the settlement, then they will contact our lawyers. So they are very good, and I hope that Nigerians out there will be able to realize this. Not everything you go to the police, there are proper agencies put in place. Apart from NAPTIV, we have the federal and State Ministry of Women Affairs. Those people, they have the power to deal and prosecute with matters that's related in the VAP Act. We have National Human Rights. We have them, they are in somewhere, I think in Wuse also. We have the Legal Aid Council. These people are equipped with the power, alongside with NAPTIV, to prosecute matters that fall within the VAP
Scope of
Act.
Violence Against Persons Act. Okay, Mr. Madi, these institutions, as rightly mentioned by Mr. Charles and Ms. Munirat, are they gender-based? Or it applies to everybody irrespective of their gender? Because there's this stereotype we have in society that only women are most times women are the ones that they answer. Men, I don't really know. I don't know if any of you have any evidence that men utilizes this channel as well, or it is just for women. Because some men might not know. They might feel, this illusion that these people, they'll take sides when you go to some of these agencies, because once she's a woman, then she'll get
More pity.
yes. So is it these institutions, are they gender based, or as a man I can go there, as a woman I can go there? Then when it has to do with maybe children, what's your take on that, please?
Yes. First of all, when you look at the provisions of the VAP Act was very explicit when it was defining offenses. It has to do with both men and women. So there is no discrimination from the act
Itself.
Yes. So the act actually is very comprehensive, bringing together both men and women. For instance, the issue of rape. Rape in criminal code was only applicable to women, but the VAP Act made it applicable to both men
And women.
Yes. So the essence of the VAP Act is to bring the two genders together to protect their rights. So the organizations, they are not genders discriminatory. For instance, the NAPTIP, if you have, whether you're a man or a woman, when you go to NAPTIP, they take up your case. If you also go to the police, they do that. They take up your case. So it is not gender
Based.
unless you are talking about maybe women affairs where they center on women.
Okay.
Then because of the specific issues pertaining to women, then they can actually take care of issues of women. But on a general scale, the institutions are empowered to enforce the VAP Act.
Okay,
They are not
irrespective
gender-
of gender.
Yes.
Okay, so for emphasis sake, if you are a man, you are a woman, please feel free to reach out to any of these organizations, except for the ones that are gender related. Please, let's go on a short break, and when we're right back, we'll be going back into our conversation.
Hello, have you or anyone you know suffered violation or oppression, regardless of cultures, identities, or backgrounds? Leadership Hub, Justice and Economic Advancement is here for you. An organization created with an amplified voice to fight for you and with you. At LJE Nigeria, you will not only be heard, but also provided with legal support. Together, we can create a country where every individual can live without fear of violation or oppression. I am Aisha Shetima, an LJE member. You too can become a member today or report any violation by visiting our website, ljenigeria.org. You can also follow us on all social media platforms for more information and updates. Remember, together, we are stronger.
Welcome back. Before we went on our break, we were discussing if the institutions that are meant to handle violence against persons are gender-based. And my colleague rightly mentioned that no, they are not gender-based. If you're a man, you're a woman, feel free to reach out to either NAPTIP and any of those institutions they all have mentioned to seek for redress. So now we'll be moving on to our next question. Miss Munirat, what remedies are available to victims of this nature?
Okay, before I go into the remedy proper, I think we should talk about the punishment that's accrued to these offenders, first of all. I think for rape, we still have the minimum of 12 years and other things and compensation for damages and all that. So when it gets to the victim, usually the first thing that will be done is to recommend them to a psychologist to be able to rehabilitate them and to rehabilitate their mental health back to order. And I think damages, compensations in case of properties that in case of property loss or in case of monetary loss or even monetary loss sometimes in order for them to be able to like come back to status quo usually.
Okay, Mr. Madi, would you like to take a swipe in addition to what Ms. Munirat has mentioned?
Start from the punishment. Like she said, for instance, rape, the VAP Act made it life imprisonment. If you are found guilty of rape, your punishment is life imprisonment. Yes. However, the issue of rape is also a crime in other laws, like the penal code and the criminal code. These are also laws that are place. I forgot, I didn't mention it. The criminal code and the penal code, they are also among the laws that regulate violence against persons. For instance, it has to do for offenses of rape. They are mentioned in criminal code. They are lined and they are criminalized. And assault is also there. Sexual assault is also there. So the criminal code applies to people in the southern region, while the penal code applies to people in the northern. So that is very important to know. And also the VAP Act also made attempt a serious offense. Attempt and abetting. For instance, when we say attempt, maybe you tried to rape someone. It is an offense under the VAP Act. If you also aided someone, you assisted someone to commit an offense, you are also culpable under the VAP Act, and you have your own offense. So these are some of the comprehensive provisions that the VAP Act made. The VAP Act is very comprehensive. It made a lot of provisions. If we go down, we will see the offense of coercion. We see even political thuggery, where some talks are being used by politicians to harass voters and beat them, just like we had in the 2023 general election, where people were harassed during the election and were beaten. So under the VAP Act, such political thoughts can actually be prosecuted and convicted. So yeah, the VAP Act is very elaborate and comprehensive.
On a lighter note, to complement what he's saying, in the VAP Act, there's also provision for how do I say it, vacating, or let me put it in a plain language, sending your partner, whether in a relationship, out of the house. Out of the house. Yes, usually we have this idea in Nigeria is the man that will get out of my house, I'm driving out of my house. It goes both ways in the VAP Act. If all these women, where did you, on a lighter note, Where did you go that you're coming around to? You sleep outside and then maybe you lock under the VAP Act. Things like
an
this
offense.
can translate into an violence against someone, locking him out of his house, and you any small thing with your wife. Oh, okay, you leave my house, you pack a load, you throw it outside. This classify under violence. I think we should even yes, I'm trying to bring the years to the barest minimum for citizens to understand little things they do that they think, not even little things they do that the VAP Act has criminalized as violence against
Mr. Strauss,
persons.
I would also love to get your opinion on this same question. What remedies are available to victims of this nature? Because it is one thing to be a victim. It's another thing for you to go and report to the police. But reporting to the police, what else would
And the
ensure?
remedies.
Yeah, what are they? Because some people might not want to go. You know this. There's
The
this
idea that they
notion
don't
that we have that nothing, like maybe our justice.
There's no
system-
justice in
Yes.
Nigeria. That's the
So
language.
some people don't even want to go there
Yes.
because they feel there's nothing to get from
Exactly.
there. So what would be that remedy that would prompt me to say, okay, let me go and approach them?
All right, thank you very much. Remedies are bound. All right, they are available remedies. Where there is a wrong, there are remedies for it. That's why the law was put in place in the first place. We should know that in some of these offenses which they have mentioned, we have also mentioned punishments that also follow. We should know that for the victim, you coming to complain in the normal parlance in the criminal justice system, they say the complainant. The complainant has certain remedies. One of the remedies is that in the event that it may have to do with maybe isolation or just sending, excluding you from the family, forcefully throwing you out of your house or taking you to an unknown place, trying to traffic you, there's a room for reconciliation in the family. Whoever the complainant is, my family member has been taken forcefully from me. There is all likelihood that he may be trafficked. That person is reunited with the family. That is a form of compensation. Go further, where investigation reveals that that person intended to do same by way of attempt, as he has stated, or he did same by way of committing that offense, there will be prosecution of that person in court. That you see clearly that a person you came to report has been prosecuted in court and has been given certain terms as prescribed by the law is also justice in itself. That is a form of remedy. Okay. Then in the instances where you feel, or by the way of that violence against the person, it has to do with psychology, because we said it is the first instance that torture could be psychological. That you are in the line, you say you are opening eye for somebody. Let me just use that language. Or you are trying to intimidate and bully somebody. The child or an adult may become timid. So in the event that there's also an arrangement to rehabilitate these people. So when you rehabilitate a victim that has come to complain, or someone came to complain on behalf of a victim, once rehabilitation also takes place,
That's a remedy. Exactly.
so, and that will bring me to a point that I want to dwell on in respect of section 13, because I think 3 of my complaints now pending before the NAPTIP, it borders on that. And I have interest in child rights.
Wow.
All right, I did evaluate in child rights, so I want to dwell on section 13, because people are consistently violating a child's rights in that regard, or meting out violence on a child without knowing. Section 13 talks about forceful isolation, where you forcefully isolate a child from their loved ones, especially maybe from either parents. You are causing violence on that
against
child.
And that's that child.
Whether or not it's immaterial, whether you have a broken home or your home is united. And most of the times you see this in persons who are passing through divorce proceedings in court. You wake
That's
up,
what I was
morning,
going to
you
ask.
pack your things, you leave the house, you take the children along with you without the knowledge of the other
Partner. Yes.
It's violence against the child, against the other person, the other partner, whether as a man or as a woman. You refuse to give access to the other person, leave matrimonial causes here. It is a violence against that child under the VAP Act. And even the Child Rights Act gives equal parenting rights to both of you. We're not talking about custody.
Yes.
We are talking about access. We are talking about
Dignity.
isolation. I had a scenario recently that someone left the house with the children, not mentioning the gender that left the house with the children, but left the house with the children, forcefully took them out from a school, kept them in a place that is yet unknown, and you left the country. That is violence against the children, violence against the other person, for forcefully taking the children away from home and hiding them in a place that you don't know about their welfare and all. What will be the remedy, as Averia said? If you reconcile these children back to the parents, that is remedy. Once you get the person involved, you prosecute the person for attempted trafficking of the children, or eventually even trafficking of the children. Then you see that remedy is set in place. So there's justice. Justice is in this country.
There's justice,
emphasis. There's justice in the country. All right, let's not capitalize on one or two happenings and overrule the place of justice.
Yes.
If there is no justice in the country, then it should have been a state of pure anarchy.
Anarchy, exactly.
All right, so there's justice in the country, and we should ensure that we follow it by the law.
And report to the appropriate channel. Let's not burden the Nigerian police with too much.
There are other agencies that have been set
there are other
in place
apart from the police.
But yeah, let me just add something briefly. In addition, we also have provision for compensation.
Yes.
That's the act. So if you are right, if someone committed violence against you, the court can also award compensation in your favor, and also you can also initiate fundamental right action.
Okay, this brings me to the next question. Does violence against persons equate to violation of fundamental rights?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So the violence against person is against fundamental human rights. In fact, let me just put it this way. What the VAP Act technically did was to criminalize some of the violations of fundamental human rights.
Okay.
Unlike the section from like chapter 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that made explicit provision for the fundamental human rights, which includes right to life, right to dignity of human person, right to liberty, right to fair hearing, right to freedom of expression. They have very elaborate human rights there. What the Constitution made it possible for you to enforce those rights. You can go to court and apply for the enforcement of your fundamental human rights, and the court can make declaration awarding you damages, both monetary and even other declaration, like calling the other or declaring that the other person should apologize to you. So these are some of the reliefs on the under the fundamental human right. But when you compare it to the VAP Act, what the VAP Act did was to put in the force under it, thereby making all those rights which you have under the Constitution, making it something that you can enforce as a crime. Whereby if someone infringes on your rights, let me say, if someone tortures you, it is against your right to dignity. So if someone tortures you, it is a crime. And that person, if convicted, will be sentenced. So if someone also maybe harassed you, intimidated you, or even confined you with unlawfully, which is against your right to personal liberty, it is a crime under the Act. And the funny thing about these the violence against persons is that most times we discover that the culprits are the police officers. The police officers, we have seen in various cases where police officers unlawfully arrest people, detain them beyond the constitutional provisions. Sometimes when you arrest someone and you refuse to grant the person bail or charge the person before a court of competent jurisdiction within time, you have already violated the person's rights.
Okay.
It's already a form of violence.
Okay, for the sake of emphasis, what my colleagues are rightly saying is that once there is violence against your persons, know ye that your rights have actually been violated. So seek redress via any means, as they've all rightly mentioned. But please, before we go, One last question. How can we encourage victims of these offenses to rise above fear, shame, and discrimination that usually these offenses will bring to them personally by utilizing the appropriate channels provided for them by
I would like to take a swipe of that before.
they can get justice
Yes.
and relief.
And before I go further, there's a very important violence against person that is in the VAP Act that I'm forgetting to mention. That includes stalking.
Yes.
You know why I like the Violent VAP Act is it cuts across, like Barrister Madi rightly said, it cuts across every other laws that were existing before now, even down to cyber crime, fundamental human rights, all down, even laws I cannot even remember. Exactly, even some laws I can't even remember to mention now. Now, stalking someone is so easy. You like someone, you're stalking them. This person did this to me, you are stalking them. That stalking is a very popular act that goes on among youths in Nigeria and here that I observe myself. I don't know if Barrister,
You're right.
And I just know when you are stalking someone, either through their phone, their WhatsApp, physically, or whatever, you are violating their rights. And back
We have
to
limited time.
yes, I'm back to victims going above their fears. I just pray and I just hope that as Nigerians and as a society, we'll be able to go above our double standard life by embracing new laws and new laws that are put in place to save ourselves from ourselves. I don't know if
Yes, I understand
yes.
that. Please,
Yeah,
Mr. Madiani, as if you're any journal.
As addition, I think what we need to do is the first thing is to have a proper mechanism for implementing the VAP Act.
Okay.
That is the major issue we have. You know, it's not enough to just have the legislation. You must have a mechanism to enforce it. For instance, NAPTIP, the organization, the agency that is empowered to enforce the VAP Act. How many branches do they have in each state? That is an issue. So we need to have more of NAPTIP organizations in different areas.
Okay.
It's not just having it one in a state or one
Zone.
Okay, Mr. Charles, any recommendations on that?
That is more orientation.
Yes.
That is why we are having this program here. Let the people know. National Orientation Agency take these issues up. The Nigerian Bar Association has taken the issue up over time. That is why you have in the last few weeks we had 16 days of activism on human rights enforcement.
Yeah.
Let it be known. So it is our duty to orient these people. When orientation is there, they will take steps. Okay, what you don't know, you can't. Your right that you don't know, you can't enforce. So my principal recommendation is that let the people be oriented. Once they are oriented, they will know most of the agencies, CSOs to go to, cry out to, and their issues are taken up from there.
Okay, thank you to our viewers for staying with us. And one of LJ is here for you as well. One of our missions actually is to help victims of fundamental rights and other violations get justice. So thank you for joining me on today's episode.
Thank you for having us.
Please remember to follow us on all our social media platforms, like, comment, and share our conversations. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.